Film on High, and today the movie that we're going to review is called Dog Soldiers. Directed by Neil Marshall, the 2002 action horror movie. This movie stars Sean Pertwee, Kevin McKidd, and Liam Cunningham. So this movie is about a platoon of soldiers out on training one day encounters supernatural creatures who stalk them down one by one until they get stuck at a house and have to defend itself until dawn. So, what'd you think about it?
Well, this is a pretty great action horror film. It's a movie I've seen before a few times. I saw it when I was younger, around the time that it first came out, and I was pretty impressed with it. It's a pretty good film. You can tell they made it on a fairly low budget, but they were still able to do a lot with that budget and stretch it in a lot of, really interesting ways. And Neil Marshall, I think this was his first film. Now he's gone on to do some other work. He also did some work on Game of Thrones. He directed a lot of the real, kind of action-heavy episodes with battles. So he's a director who definitely knows how to shoot action. And you can definitely see that in this film. Even as early as his first film, he was already showing a certain technical flair. And, it adheres to a lot of the old kind of horror film rules. In a lot of ways, this film is sort of the way that Extreme Prejudice was an homage to Peckinpah and the Wild Bunch. This film is an homage to horror action films of the 70s and 80s. Films like Predator and Aliens and even Jaws to a certain degree. And, the Jaws formula is really kind of used effectively with the whole idea of don't show the creatures more than you have to, or at least, you ease the audience into it instead of just making it clear and obvious from the beginning. And the werewolves themselves, you can tell that it's just kind of people in suits, but it's still pretty effective, the way it's shot and the way the action scenes are shot.
Yeah. The way this movie is portrayed, like you said, it is on a low budget, but they get to capture this atmosphere because the forest setting, of course, was the optimal choice. And them being out there at night, only having half an hour to even try to vacate the premises, but one of their sergeants gets injured, and so they have to kind of help him out. He's all battered up and stuff, and then somebody else finds them. This Megan, played by Emma Cleansby, and essentially she saves them and drives them to the house in order to try to get all of them out of there, but you get to feel the tension from it.
They get ambushed by the werewolves, and they're picked up by this random bystander and taken to this house. And we didn't even really mention the plot of the movie, but these soldiers are deployed out to the woods, essentially doing war games, a training exercise. They don't think it's going to be a real thing, but then they encounter the special forces group that they were shadowing has been completely killed and decimated, and they don't find too many corpses, but they find a lot of blood. So they take their weapons and their live ammunition and prepare themselves for what's obviously a hostile situation. And they find Captain Ryan, played by Liam Cunningham, who would later go on to be Davos Seaworth on Game of Thrones, another little Game of Thrones connection. And he had an interaction with the main character, Cooper, earlier on in the film, where Cooper was trying to become a member of the Special Forces, but because of his moral scruples, he wasn't really allowed in. So there's kind of a backstory between these characters, and his character kind of gets taken along because he's injured, and I like the way his character was used because it's obvious that there's something going on with him. But when when the action happens, everything happens so quick that you don't really think about it too much. The movie is really well paced in the sense of they balance things out between the quiet moments and the action heavy moments, and it allows them to kind of dole out the exposition as they go. And it's not a film that's super heavy on lore. They don't explain the source of the werewolves or where they come from or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there is some backstory to be conveyed to the audience, and it's done in a fairly reasonable way where it doesn't slow the movie down or take away from the action too much.
Yeah. And I especially love the team, the camaraderie that they have.
Yeah.
You spend some time with them, not too much, but enough to understand who's who and what's what. and as each of them get taken down, you get to at least feel something that you're like, oh man, that guy got you saw something like that, you know.
Yeah, like the movie we spend a bit of time like it opens up with this really kind of random opening scene involving these two characters that are really not around for too long. It's just kind of to set the tone, and it's a pretty cliched horror scene of like a couple camping in the woods and they get attacked. It's I don't really care for it that much, to be honest. But after that, we sort of get into the action of the movie where we meet the characters, the soldiers, and they really stand out. Like there's Cooper, played by Kevin McKidd, and Sean Pertwee, who plays Wells, the sergeant of the group, and another character, Spoon, played by Darren Morfitt. He's probably like the funniest character in the movie just because of his little, just like, the dialogue, but also just little ticks that the character has and the way he performed the character. Really good job. And all the actors did a good job. They just have this great kind of British, like tough guy charm to them, but in a way they're just normal guys. Like it almost contrasts with, again, something like Predator or Aliens, where you're dealing with like more well-trained soldiers. These guys are just kind of like low-level grunts, and you can tell they don't even really want to be doing this. They complain about not being at home. They want to watch their football game and stuff. So it kind of humanizes them and makes them seem like more relatable, kind of blue-collar, working-class guys. So it makes it easier to kind of get on their level. And yeah, they're all like really likable guys, and the humor is good. Again, it's almost like a Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels kind of thing, where some of the humor is almost like too British, so it might be like lost on some people.
Yeah.
But it's still it's funny.
It's funny when it needs to be, and there's not a lot of werewolf horror movies nowadays that either capture that type of tension or something like that. It's always just like very periodic type of work.
Yeah, it's a tough genre to capture, and like this film in some ways it sort of harkens back also to American Werewolf in London, like another kind of classic werewolf movie that was also very black comedy and kind of had a lot of dark, funny, ironic stuff going on. And another thing I'd compare it to is maybe Evil Dead, like just kind of, because there are moments of just goofy slapstick humor in the film, and as it goes on, it becomes more inventive. As the soldiers start running out of ammunition and resources to fight the werewolves, they basically start using anything they can get their hands on. They throw pots of boiling water at them and like just anything they can get, and that's great too. Just watching them kind of struggle to fight the werewolves with anything they have, it makes the whole situation more interesting and more engaging.
It's one of those throwbacks from the 2000s, and it was unfortunately, like, I never really heard about it until maybe like 5-6 years later after it originally came out.
Yeah, like I think it was pretty badly like mishandled when it came out. I don't even think it had a theatrical release in America. Like I think it premiered on TV on the Sci-Fi Channel, which is pretty fucked up because it is a good movie, and it's a movie that definitely deserved to have a wider release. Like it stands up there with a great, solid kind of comedic horror film that also delivers the action and the scares that you need.
Yeah, overall my rating for this movie would be 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'll give it a 4 out of 5 as well. Like I really enjoy it. Like I said, I saw it when it originally came out around that time. Maybe a couple years later, I just saw it at the video store and rented it. And I was pretty pleasantly surprised by it. Even then, like I knew that it was kind of, I'd already seen like a lot of the movies that it was kind of paying homage to, so I appreciated it on that level. But also just on its own, it has a lot of merits. Like I said, the characters are good, the action's good, the actors are good, and there's a few moments in there to keep you guessing and keep you speculating as you go along. It has a bit more depth maybe than the average horror film.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to kind of pull those things off in a horror movie. Like when you're doing this kind of thing, the characters can sometimes seem really disposable or expendable, but this is a movie that actually pulls it off, making you care about these characters, but also at the same time not like not getting too like over the top with it. Like it still remembers to be a horror movie, like it
people will die.
Exactly. Like yeah, it's not afraid to kill people, and it's not afraid to do some pretty like gruesome and horrific things at times.
Oh, yeah. If you don't like gore, probably avoid this movie.
Yeah, but it's not the worst I've ever seen either. There's definitely some gorier movies out there, but there are some moments, like, again, like, using the small budget to the best of their ability. Like, when the gore hits, it hits pretty effectively.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you're a fan of horror movies or action movies, or, you want something in that vein, if you're a fan of Predator or Aliens, you'll probably love this one. So it's definitely worth checking out.
All right, this has been Film on High.
Peace.
Later.